Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar featuring a discussion with USAID's Transform WASH about a problem-based sales promotion approach to accelerate access to sanitation. As you're joining the room, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat pod. As you may have noticed, our webinar today is 45 minutes long. It's snack-sized with 3 brief presentations followed by a Q&A. We'll aim to keep this, again, under 45 minutes, so please be ready for your questions when we get to that portion of the agenda. My name is KD from USAID's Global Waters Communications and Knowledge Management 2 project, and along with my colleague, Joelle, we will be available if you have any technical questions during today's event. Just share your issue in the chat. For the Q&A portion, please type your questions into the chat or the Q&A box, which will be available along the right-hand side of your screen. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Monty Achenbach to get us started.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm pleased to be with you today. My name is Monty Achenbach. I'm the Chief of Party for USAID Transform WASH with PSI Ethiopia. Today, we want to talk to you a bit about a very specific program that we added to Transform WASH over the years to adapt our demand creation approaches. So we are going to talk to you about DQ, or Decision Intelligence. I'll leave more on that in a bit to my colleague Dagem Demeru, who is our Associate Director at PSI Ethiopia for Business Development. Quick outline, I'll share with you a bit of context on how we came to begin this work on DQ. Second, a bit about the discovery process, or the exploration and research process, recommendations and directions that we decided to take. From there, Dagem will take it and talk to you about the DQ framework and implementation design, some information about our performance monitoring, analysis, and support, very important part of the overall program that we developed, and lastly, some results. Quick background, some of you may have seen this before, so bear with me. The objectives of Transform WASH correspond very closely with what we see as the ingredients of market development. 4 main areas that are our result areas for Transform WASH. Beginning with strengthening the enabling environment. Ethiopia has a quite involved government, I would say, in the economy. So working with the government, particularly the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Water and Electricity, and the One WASH National Program to strengthen their capacities to facilitate market growth. Through our own engagement with the government and capacity building. Our partner on that is SNV as part of our consortium. Second and third are the fundamentals of market development itself, supply and demand. So growing sustained demand among households for low-cost quality wash products and services is critical to moving the market forward and to building market fundamentals and supply chains. Without demand, businesses have no interest in supplying products and services. And of course, conversely, without products in the supply chain, households have no demand to be created. So improving supply chains, supply of wash product choices, technologies, and financing is critical in more places to make sure the market is working properly. And lastly, one of the most important things that Transform WASH is doing is to learn from our approaches, fail fast when we need to, disseminate that learning, and use that learning and adaptation to reach greater scale. So I'm going to fast forward a bit to a later time in our program when we started realizing there were some gaps in our approach, particularly related to demand creation. We saw that among businesses, like the picture you see here on the right, we had quite excellent technical skills. So being able to do installations, being able to provide the the products and services through their know-how really wasn't a question. It was their ability to create their own demand for their own array of products and services. So we needed a more structured sales methodology and the monitoring systems to ensure that we were getting results on this kind of programming. So building sales skills was critical. We didn't have a training approach for what we saw as an important component of what we were doing, which was door-to-door sales skills of our business partners. As a result, I'd say that our sales were lower than expected among our partners, with excessive fluctuation, too many ups and downs in their performance. And lastly, we needed an overall strategy that would drive sales among these businesses, and we needed to help focus the team, our own team, to be able to do that. So in partnership with Witten and Roy, you may have heard of them, WRP, they're a global consultancy that focuses on sales skills training. We conducted a discovery process. This was a process of identifying restraints of many kinds that were in need of a solution among our team. So identifying organizational, strategy, process, personnel, all the different kinds of restraints that were holding us back and our business partners in increasing the number of latrines offered and sold. We wanted to identify the strengths we already had as well that would increase potential for success. So the discovery process was all about examining all of these factors to see how we could put together a program that was most responsive to what we needed to help businesses sell well and increase their sales. So this led to a design process that looked at three primary areas. The first was sales competencies themselves. And Witten and Roy has pioneered what's called a problem-led sales approach. This approach facilitates conversations between the business and a household member rather than setting up a potential confrontation, or as we call it, a block that stops the process early because households will throw up reasons that they don't want to make a purchase. So there are various ways of doing this. All elements of the training program that we were working to set up with WRP. This included referrals from other customers, stories about successes in installing and using latrines, customer testimonials, all of which create momentum in the sales conversations that are held between the business and the household. As I said, these are skills that were rare to come by, yet a lot of potential among our business partners to improve and to do sales presentations that really work. Second part is sales execution. So it's not only the ability to do the selling, but it's to execute well. We wanted to focus our staff on their own dedicated sales support role rather than just a trainer role. This is a follow-up mentoring and coaching role for our own business development team so that they can support the building of sales skills and execution of those sales among business partners. So this includes things like how many households are visited in a day, what kind of neighborhoods do you select, how often do you go out, and moving backward from the results they want to the process they need to put in place to get to those results. We determined the inputs that were required to meet targets, so pulled back on a focus on targets and looked more at the inputs that will actually get to those targets and results. Then focus on those and monitor them regularly. And the third and last element of the design was management competency. So not only how well we do the training, not only how well the business partners and our team execute on that, but how well are we managing ourselves? And we worked with the WRP to create a PSI way of managing for this program and across all of the activities we're doing as a business development team. So we applied this across the whole team, and we shifted our focus less on the technical and on the training skills per se, and more on staff management, coaching competency, and other skills that needed strengthening to improve the overall management of the team. I'll turn it over to Dagim now to talk to you about the DQ framework and implementation design.
Thank you, Monte, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So I'll be talking to you about in detail about the DQ framework, the framework that we applied for our sales process, and briefly on the implementation design. So to start with, I'll just start with overall management framework that we applied to transform our results in sales. So it's called RACE. RACE is basically a simple calculation that says result is a combination of attitude, competence, and execution. So as you can see in the picture, I mean, the competence is like the basis for all. The more competence that we have, it requires a bit effort to have more results. So competence is about the skill and knowledge that a person have on DQ, on conducting DQ processes, on how to connect with people, on how to plan and how to resolve blocks. So it's really a basic. But competence alone is not enough. So we need also execution. So execution is planning, territory management, and doing tasks to have an optimum result. So it's all about time and task management. So when we consider result and execution, these are the things that we can really influence by providing training, by putting the right kind of management framework in place. But there is a third thing which is really very important, and that's really sometimes really difficult to influence. So it's called attitude. Attitude is the state of mind that we are in. So if a person is not in the right attitude, it's really difficult to have the right kind of result or to transform our results. Especially the kind of attitudes that we face in sales is people will think they cannot achieve sales. And so with that kind of mindset, it's really difficult to have a good result. So it's really important where our attitude is, to have where our attitude is placed. So besides this there is framework which is like the general management framework that we apply. We implement the DQ or the decision intelligence sales approach, which is a process that works the customers through a problem-led decision-making process. So many of you might be well aware of the EQ, which is the emotional intelligence. So the DQ is like it's like that, but it's just helping the customer to make the right decision. So basically, any customer or any household or any individual has got situation. To give you an example, a situation for a household with an improved latrine or an improved sanitation might be a very bad toilet, a toilet which is open, a toilet which is not clean, a toilet which is not safe, and so this might be the overall situation. So this can be seen or observed by the person who's conducting the sales promotion and the household. Then this situation definitely will result with problems. So the problems might be health problems, like people having diarrhea all the time, because of that, people losing work time to care for somebody who has got a health problem, and also risk of falling of children, or children might not use the toilet because of the structure might not be stable. So these are all the problems that a household might have because of the situation. And smell also, like odor, is also one of the problems. So all these are the problem, but this problem has also related costs. So it's really important to try to translate these problems into monetary terms, because household really or people will really understand what really gets into their pocket. And so it makes it really tangible. So this all problem can be monetized. So this is so the problem with health can be monetized with the expenditure on health. People who've foregone income that's foregone, and also toilet construction costs. There are all costs related to the problems that the household has. So this is the overall process and the overall DQ or digital intelligence framework. So what basically, like we have got people that are partners, we work with partners, business partners, that we call mason installers, who go door to door and conduct sales promotion, and also work like construct people's latrine or improve people's latrine. So these people really goes to houses and talk with household heads or anybody in the house, and they just work them through these 4 steps. They start with the problem, and also they see, they observe the latrine and see the situation, and they ask what kind of problems that the household is facing because of the situation that he is in. Then they will help the household calculate the cost of the problem. So this, as I mentioned earlier, will really create urgency. Then they will present the solution, affordable solutions that really fits with the situation that the household have, because you have got a range of options. So with the solutions, they will also calculate the cost of the solution, and at the end, they will brief them about the value of the solution. So this is the 4 steps that the mason installer will take a household through to make a decision making. So that was briefly about the DQ process and the RACE framework that we are following. So in taking this program into ground, like in implementing, we designed a training program and a management framework. So the training program goes through basic sales skill training, which was a basic 5 days training, but the skills, it's really difficult to transfer skills through an ordinary training. It's easier to transfer knowledge through training. So skills could not really be transferred easily by training. So there was a follow-up field embedding exercise whereby the WRP field consultant was going with our business facilitators, which are our frontline workers, and going door to door and show them how they're going to do how they're going to implement the DQ, and how they be able to coach and do activities. So then after that, there was training, training our business people, our staffs, on how they can transfer this training to mason installers or our business partners. Then there is the coaching and mentoring, whereby it at least takes 5 weeks to train a single mason in all these skills. So this is like a hands-on exercise that we have gone through. So there were also other sales and management trainings that were follow-up. So this was the general training design, training program that we followed in implementing the DQ process. I think it took more than from 6 to 8 months to finalize the whole process. Then besides the training program, we have put a management and support in place. So the basic one is a routine monitoring and reporting system that was put in place. It is a weekly reporting system. So we use our database, our management information system, to collect data digitally, and we view this data. So individual performance, we measure individual performance, and also team and our mason installers or our business partners' performance using this management information system that we put in place. So based on the performance measurement, we provide coaching and support. So we usually use check-ins, personal conference, and coaching sessions to provide support for the team and also for the partners. So if I say this, like about the design and the DQ framework, I will continue with the performance monitoring that we have put in place and the support that we have. So we basically use what we call special numbers in our reporting. So these are really focused indicators and data indicators that measure contributors to results. So these numbers really help to trace and identify gaps. As I mentioned earlier, in RACE framework, so result is a combination of attitude, competence, and execution. So when we provide, support for an individual, we just need to identify where his challenge is, So I mean, basically, by seeing these numbers, it really helps us to guide our mentoring and coaching support. It really helps us to guide where we should support. Is it a problem of competence that this individual has? Is it a problem of attitude? Or is it a problem of execution? So basically, without just going to the field or saying what he's doing or having supervision, we're just looking at the numbers, it just tells us where the gaps and helps us identify the gaps. And also we provide our coaching and mentoring based on that. So basically this database is in DHIS2, our District Household Information System 2, which is the database we use in our project. So it has got a couple of dashboards displayed by individual members and also by projects. So there is also individual and project performance tracking sheets. This is reviewed by supervisors weekly and monthly, and they use it to give feedback routinely. So as you can see, for example, this is one of our project charts that shows the conversion rate, like the sales promotion to conversion rate, which usually hovers around 30%. So this is also available individually. I mean, we can see the conversion rate by individual business staff that we have. So the special numbers are two. There are two kinds of special numbers that we are using. The first one is the numbers that we use to measure the performance of business partners, or as I mentioned earlier, this is called Mason installers, our frontline business partners. So these are number of sales presentation to household and number of sales. So it shows us their effort and their results. So this is the two numbers that we monitor, and we have got additional numbers that we use to see the performance of our business development team. So these are number of active Mason installers which are really active in conducting sales in that specific period of time. The number of coaching sessions with Mason installers. So this shows us how many coaching sessions that our business facilitator has with the Mason installers and hours spent in this coaching session. So basically, by seeing this, it just will show us some the effectiveness, the efficiency of our activity on the field. So I mean, just basically just to show you how we made analysis, because like for example, a business facilitator might have a very high promotion to sales conversion rate, or like basically it might be also a Mason installer might have a high promotion to sales conversion rate, but might have a low sales figure. So in this case, for example, this shows that very high conversion rate shows that Mason installer as a business facilitator has the right competence, but he might lack in execution. So he's not doing a lot. He might not be planning his territory well. So it's not so in this case we just have to provide feedback or support on his execution, and we just have to show him how to plan or something. To make another scenario, just to show another scenario, a business facilitator might be spending many hours on coaching and support, but might have result with low sales. So here there might be a lot of reasons for this. It might be competence, he might not know how he's conducting his coaching, and also this might be a problem of execution. But most of it lies really on the competence or attitude. So we have got this kind of scenarios that we can really observe from the dashboard that we have. We can easily observe that from the dashboard that we had. So if I say this about the monitoring and analysis, let me go to the results. After implementing this, what kind of result did we really achieve? Is it really effective? What were really the results? Is it really worth the spending on it? So as you can see here, like currently we have sold more than 140,000 toilets in total, including through the DQ sales. We started up implementing DQ sales almost 1.5 years before. So for the past 1 year, if you see, for example, on the reporting year, last year, into 2022, we have close to 40,000 toilets sold through the DQ approach. And it accounts for almost 80% of the total monthly sales that we have. But basically what is really fascinating is, previously, as you can see in the graph, there were really ups and downs in our sales figure. And this might be my possible reasons might be because of the security situation in the country, and also because of the low seasons, because of the inflation and the economic situation. But if you see, like from the period from February 2021 onwards, you can see consistent acceleration of sales. So even in the low season, even even if there are a lot of major setbacks, our sales is strongly continuing to accelerate. This is because I think now we know how to drive sales. And also you can see like there is an improved performance tracking and accountability. Now we can account individuals, on their progress and get back to them and provide them support. And also sales has increased by almost 300% between November 2021 and September 22, which is really a tremendous amount. And also one of the basic result is like we have improved installation of products and tracking of installation. So it has been really a good approach to implement, and also it has got a lot of results. So by this, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dagim. With that, I think we're going to ask Monty to stop sharing his screen and welcome Karen Jensink onto the mic to speak a little bit from the perspective of the Roy and Witten partnership.
Thank you, everyone. And Monty and Dagim, thank you so much for sharing how you have used everything that you've learned from Witten and Roy partnership sales in Ethiopia. That's very exciting. My name is Karen, and I work with Witten and Roy partnership. WRP is a sales consulting firm that helps to transform sales and management and leadership for socially minded businesses. We have worked with clients in 53 countries over the years, and have worked with clients that sell products ranging from solar systems to biodigesters and agriculture products to wash products all over the world. I myself worked with IDE Cambodia on their wash program many years ago, and I'm currently working with a project with PSI in Kenya, a wash project as well. So WRP often starts working with clients when they're desperate for sales, right? When it's become, they've invested a lot in the supply chain, they've invested in figuring out the product design and training people, the local people to produce whatever it is they're selling, but for some reason sales are stuck and they don't know what to do. And so that's where my team comes in. And what we do is we go in, just like I think Monty was explaining the process. We go and we'll do a discovery. We'll try to understand the problems with the sales. Why aren't sales results increasing? And through that process, we use a framework called RACE, which Dagim showed on the screen there for a minute. And so RACE is really about, we look at the results through a lens of attitude, competency, and execution. And oftentimes always, when results are down, that means that something, attitude, competency, and execution, one of those or a combination of all three, are also down, so to speak. So results equals attitude plus competence plus execution. So for example, attitude is a major, it's very important in sales. And if a sales team or a local artisan or a local mason installer, for example, doesn't believe that they can sell, for example, we can't sell in the rainy season. It's not possible. It's too muddy to deliver. It's too wet for concrete to dry. Or we can't sell in this area because we've already sold there. That territory is done. If those are the beliefs, or for example, people can't afford this. If those are the beliefs of the people doing the sales, then they're not going to sell much. And so we come in, one of the first things that we want to do with teams is help them shift attitudes and start to believe that things are possible. Second thing is competency. Oftentimes, nearly always, when I work with a new client, they are doing sales the best they know how, which is often the product-led approach, which means they're pushing products or explaining, you need to buy this. If you don't, this is what will happen. There can be shaming involved, and that's not an effective way to sell. And so instead of pushing products on people, we teach a framework called DQ, which Dagim also led us through, which helps people understand the problems and the cost of those problems. So what are the problems of using an unimproved latrine or not improved latrine? You get very sick. And not only do you get sick, but we lead people to literally calculate the cost. How much is it costing them to get sick? And then by buying a new toilet, for example, then how much money can you actually save over the long term? So we'll work on upskilling the sales team and the managers in learning how to sell with a product-led approach to increase their competency. So then the last thing, effort or execution is another word. Oftentimes, when I go to a new client, their salespeople and their sales team or their territory where they're working is very broad, very wide. Salespeople will often go to what they think is the easiest place to sell, and so they'll jump territory quickly. They'll go from one province to another province because they think it's easier to sell in those provinces. And so what that leads to is really inefficient sales. It's expensive to transport or for sales teams to travel. The cost of fuel, gasoline is expensive. It's just an inefficient use of time for both people doing the selling and the managers doing the coaching. And so we will go in and work with teams to help them maybe scale back and scale down in order to figure out their selling system before scaling into bigger territories or different areas. So that's an example of the way that we work with a client. So really trying to understand where the results are coming from. Is it attitude, competency, execution, and then work with them to design intervention that our team will often then go in and do a training, a delivery of a training or a series of trainings, and then we follow that with embedding because coaching is extremely important. You're learning a skill. Dagim referenced this as well too. When learning a skill, you need to have follow-up coaching, and we support our clients to help figure out their selling process as a whole. So that's a little bit about WRP and how we work. Oftentimes, clients come to us after years of struggling with sales, and sometimes we have the opportunity to come on the front end and help develop the design of the selling framework from the beginning. And I think we've seen some really great successes with organizations who have that kind of foresight to start early. So I can answer questions, happy to share more. Otherwise, I'll pass the mic on.
Great, thank you. If our presenters could all come on camera now, and John, would you like to start presenting some questions to the group? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Here we go.
So there's one question from Andrea Ferrand. How do you measure and monitor the components of the race framework to understand what factors need to be addressed? You guys want to start?
Yeah, great question. The special numbers that Dagim talked about apply to more of the execution piece and less, say, on attitude and competency. Attitude and competency are things that are measured better through actual coaching. So after the training is done and after there's follow-up, and the business partners are visited, our team conducts coaching sessions that look at gauging exactly these things. They will evaluate how well is a given business partner, expressing attitude toward the job, and look at the actual sales skills. So they'll observe them in sessions. Could be just a 15, 30-minute session to see how well they're doing with a given household, and then immediately after that session, we'll give feedback. So with that give and take, they're able on a one-on-one process to evaluate and understand how well they're doing on those two components. On the competency, and on the execution, we're able to understand how well they're both, I would say, executing and how well they're executing, so the competency. So for example, when you look at the business partners, we know how many presentations they'll make in a week, and we know how many of those actually convert to a sale. So if that conversion rate is low, then there's some issues there with competency, and that's something that can be worked on. If it's high, then there may be other things that can be worked on with that business partner, or you move on to those who need more support. So we're able to adjust and really focus the program on those who most need it and the specific areas where they need the work.
Yeah.
Anything to add to that?
No,
Megan?
I think it's enough. Yeah.
Karen, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, well said.
Let's go to a very tough question from Susan Davis, which she's asking about selling. She's saying selling is hard. Is it realistic to expect technical people to be really good at it, or should you find different people who are good at that, just like most businesses in the U.S. do?
Yeah, that's a great question. Maybe, I don't know, Dagan, do you want to take a first shot at that?
I mean, on the selection of salespeople, I think Karen can add more. Can have good answers, but it's really good to have a novice people that doesn't really know about sales to teach them about the DQ process, rather than bringing really an experienced salespeople to learn about the decision intelligence. Because it's really difficult to fill a glass which is already full with other things. So our people were not really salespeople when they start. So I think that's one of the opportunities that we had, because they were able to learn this process, this approach well, and try to implement it. Yeah.
Yeah, and also we did in the earliest stages try to work more with sales agents, as we call them. These weren't technical people. They weren't doing the installing, for example. They weren't trained in how to do the technical piece, and would work on a commission basis with the technical, with the construction businesses. And we found that was helpful in some cases. There are a large number of our maybe more advanced business partners who are working with sales agents who are specifically focused on sales. But we also found that to make real impact and have greater scale, we needed to work with, say, these one-person businesses, like a mason who has some skills but needs to get started on a business activity, and train them up on sales, because they're the ones who are actually going to go door to door and need these sales skills to be able to sell what they have. We found that through this process, you can take somebody who has just a technical skill and train them up to be able to do a decent job of selling. Without that, they don't do a great job at it. So it's very possible to work with those who are really more focused on the technical to be good salespeople too. That was really the point. Maybe later, when they get busier, they may add more products to their range, maybe more complicated construction. At that point, they might want to add a dedicated sales agent to work with them, to go ahead and do the hard work of selling. But there really was room for these one-person businesses own selling. Then they can train that to others too later. So, it enabled us to have a set of business partners who have these skills and could impart them to others as well.
Maybe, Karen, a question for you, because you've worked in many different countries with many different types of businesses and products to try to sell. There's a question from Puneet Srivastava. What are the greatest challenges to this approach in developing countries and for the bottom of the pyramid markets?
Good question. The greatest challenge, you know what? Our clients in the United States and England have a lot of the same challenges. It's this idea of product pushing, convincing people. It's using time in extremely inefficient ways, not tracking the right numbers, attitude. So it's very interesting how people are people. At the end of the day, people are people, and it's a human behavior that we're trying to change and influence. We're trying to teach people how to influence people to make a decision for themselves, a smarter decision based on better data that they can explore for themselves for the DQ selling process. So I think more than you might imagine, problems are common across countries and cultures because they're human problems. I think challenges in specifically developing countries can relate to just infrastructure, simply roads, transportation. In rainy season, there's a reason people have attitude blocks because of rainy season. It's hard, it is challenging, but it's not impossible. When a team comes together, they can get really creative and come up with creative solutions. So I think, finances is challenging. You're selling to the poor. And so it's working with clients to figure out who's kind of the right strata to start with, and how do we start there and then go deeper with different financing options or partnerships and creative saving solutions. And so, again, convincing people to spend their money on, the little money they have, however much it is always a challenge in any country, in any context. But that definitely is a bigger problem, but creative solutions have been formed. I think those are some of just the practical challenges that I've experienced.
Yeah, and I was going to say, building on that last point, and this is something that comes up a lot in our discussion about our program in general, is obviously these are all businesses and they need to make a profit. They're not going to stay in business if it's not worthwhile to them. And often, people say, well, this work really isn't very profitable to them. Doing sanitation business, there's this kind of conventional wisdom that somehow it doesn't make people money, especially if it's standalone. And we always have to think of it as something that's building toward a bigger portfolio. But one of the things WRP has really helped us on is tackling this head on by working with the businesses on what they call aiming, which is having them individually look at their goal. How much money would you like to make in a month that will make it worth your while? And then move backward from there. So if you want to make this amount, then you need to reach this number of households, and this number of households need to buy from you. And looking at what the profit margin is for each of the units they sell, you can come up with that amount that they want to make. It's amazing how transformational it is for a business to know where they want to go and what they need to know, what they need to do to get there. And how enlightening it is for them to say, okay, actually, not every house has to say yes. I'm going to assume that about 25 to 30% will say yes. And that means I need to reach this many households. And guess what? That's doable in the amount of time I want to put toward this. That planning process, that aiming, makes a huge difference in their confidence that they can make this worthwhile. There are known quantities instead of so many unknown.
So I want to try to get to just two more questions before we wrap up, because we're almost at time, or we're kind of at time. But Daga, maybe this one's for you. from Anonymous. Was there any difference in sales results achieved between men and women business partners?
Yeah.
Maybe you can only talk anecdotally about it, but you probably have the data on that too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't actually have the data right now, but from what we know is we do have really good business women's business partners, and in a place that we do have business partners, they really contribute a lot for the sales. I cannot really tell you this amount of businesses, women's businesses are contributing to the sales, but I know like they are really effective salespeople. I know they are doing well in sanitation business. So if you had anything to add,
No, I mean, yeah, it's a great question, and those are numbers we can definitely crunch.
Yeah.
To have a good sense.
And then maybe just to close on this, a great question from Michael Roberts. He was asking some of the questions you already answered around, are mason installers doing the sales themselves, and are they able to do it effectively? I think the answer to that is yes, we've proven that. But I think there's a question about what kind of ongoing support do they need, and do you think that they'll be able to do this sustainably in the long term? So, David, maybe you can start.
Oh yeah, I can start. As Monty mentioned, now we provide them routine coaching support. Rather, we have found out that like a close routine coaching support is really effective in just capacitating these people and transferring the skill and looking at their execution and just trying to fill their gaps as they are going on. But in sustainability, I think most of the business will be sustainable because it's really profitable. I mean, business will be sustainable if it's really profitable and attractive for the business partners or for the business people. So we have found out that to be really sustainable, but the support framework needs to be transferred to other organizations which can take it from us and continue providing support for these people.
Yeah, and that's a real priority of ours.
In the coming years, that's our priority. Working on sustainability, transferring the skills to institutions and institutionalizing this process.
Karen, any last words from you before we wrap up on those questions, or
thank you.
Have you seen the data on the sort of women salespeople versus men salespeople?
Yeah, I don't have data to support this, but I could say pretty confidently that women are generally very successful salespeople compared to men. I mean, it obviously depends, but I think that's a trend. Yeah. And it depends who you sell to as well. If you're a woman selling to women, actually I just talked with someone from IDE who did a study on this, and she did say that especially when women are selling to women, that is an effective interaction versus men selling to women. And so since if women are making the decisions in the family, or especially with wash products, that can be just more effective interchange.
Great. And I think we're going to close now, but just pointing out in the chat that Joelle has asked us to fill out a quick survey. So if you haven't done that, please just click on that link in the chat window and fill out it's a Minty survey. So maybe I'll click on it right now too. And and I want to thank everybody and hand it back over to Katie to close us out.
Yes, thank you everyone so much for joining us. I wanted to note that we will be sharing the recording and the slides from this in the next several weeks on globalwaters.org. You can just check back on the event webpage on Global Waters. And I wanted to thank everyone again for a great webinar and great questions. We hope to see you in another one of these events soon.